The following video interview is part of the USMC VTA History Project, and we're recording the VTA at the VTA reunion in Washington D.C. on October 30th, 2015. And our interviewee at this point is Claude Vargo, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, my name is Chris Vargo. It's born with Claude, so I use Chris in the Marine Corps naturally. I was in the Marine Corps from '67 to right at 1970, and was overseas in Vietnam between the end of December 1967, 68, and most of 69. In fact, it was until about the end of August, right at the 1st of September of 69. I went over as a private first class, and I came back, I guess senior corporal, because when I got back I was promoted to sergeant. I spent about it was 21 months overseas. The first couple things and I was with 3rd Marine Division, 3rd Tanks, Bravo Company, and I was in 3rd Platoon. Mostly I was on, I think I was on 4 of the 5 tanks. So I bounced around quite a bit and was in a lot of places. I was at, Phu Bai, Camp Carroll, Khe Sanh, Long Bay, Khe Lu, Geo Lin, Cantien, a lot of LZ Stud, Vandegrift, all the way to Quarry. So it was entirely the entire DMZ from west almost to Laos all the way to the Gulf, and about 20-25 miles deep. Quang Tri, I was also there, and a lot of points in between that I don't even remember. First thing that I do remember is landing in country, which of course with jet was about a 727. I noticed the steep descent going into the runway right away. It was not your normal landing. In fact, I thought it was like a nosedive. But and so the different modes of transportation that we took were mostly steep and stop and drop type thing. First thing I remember was a couple things I remember was getting a Gamma Goblin shot. If none of the other interviewees were talking about it, I got Nurse Nasty, and she was a regular bulldog. Should have been in the Marine Corps instead of the Navy. And the shots were composed of it looked like napalm in there, like DEP hairspray or hair gel. And instead of injecting it like this, she had you bend over and injected it like that, and put the serum right through your hip. Well, when you walked out and drug your 1 foot, everybody in the outside knew you were an FNG, a newbie, a new guy. So that was in our tank rear was in Phu Bai, and all we did was really fill sandbags in the monsoon mud. And after about 10 days, 12 days, it was very, very quick that all hell broke loose. And it was the first Tet offensive. It was really bad, and that was in Phu Bai. And we were, looking at it now, we were 3.8 miles away from Hue City, which got hit real bad. In fact, the NVA division took over the entire Citadel at the time. And then, but instead of getting assigned a tank, because I went through tank school, I was running behind a tank. And I was assigned, because I hadn't been a tank assignment yet, I was assigned to a provisional rifle company. And of course, every Marine is assigned a rifle, no matter if he's assigned a spoon as cook. So I was among a bunch of new cooks in whites and camouflage and cosmoline weapons that had never been fired before or even cleaned, and we went off to war. We were running behind. The only thing that we were really doing is ducking behind like hedgerow, brick fences, stone fences, that type thing, firing intermittently at the enemy. Running behind, I was running behind a flame tank, and who didn't really, was really only firing his 50 caliber and his 30 caliber at the time, but gun tanks were firing. But they were limited because it was street-to-street action, so they couldn't traverse the turrets, type thing. But looking around across the river, which I think was a perfume river, which stunk pretty bad, and they were firing at the dug-in NVA, but were warned that they couldn't fire on the churches and the synagogues and synagogues, the Buddhist temples, and so forth. They had to be extremely careful. I was there for about in Hue. Of course, wars without sleep, so I don't remember if it was 2 days or 3 days. But we went. I asked for a tank assignment. What I could never understand is why I asked for a tank assignment, and tankers were getting knocked off, left and right here. Well, I wasn't assigned a tank there, but I was flown out of Hue City via Camp Carroll, and then to Khe Sanh, which was just being fired up. I thought I was going to an R&R post in Northwest Vietnam. Little did I know it was another Dien Bien Phu, which, as history records, in 1954, the 16,000 French were overrun by General Wen Giap, who is the same general that is now encircled Khe Sanh. To give you a little bit of background for future generations, there were 4 divisions surrounding Khe Sanh, about 11,000 each, so it was about 44,000 enemy, and our troop strength was between 4,000 and 6,000. I say 4,000 to 6,000 because it started at probably 6,000 and was minus at least 1,000, 1,500 after that were either killed or wounded and medevaced when available. The Khe Sanh was just an airstrip, and it was supposed to be a resupply post, and so we only had 5 tanks that were there. When I did get flown into Khe Sanh, we went in the CH-53 helicopter. Big chopper, troop carrier, with about 40, maybe 45 troops on board that were fully loaded and ready for battle. We hovered up in the clouds for seemed like, or the fog seemed like for an eternity while we were waiting to drop, and the rotor blades were just going like at a minimum, just to stand like in place, flight in place. And all of a sudden, everybody was, heart was in their throat at the time. When the jet engines, kicked in, I mean, they really kicked in, and everything seemed like it was exploding, and these rotor blades were just going around, and we dropped straight down. Okay, and when we dropped straight down, the chopper did a dead cat bounce, and everybody just about lost their lunch, and it lifted up on the front end and lifted and spent everything out the back end like a dice on a Yahtzee board, just completely head over heels with M16s, everything loaded for the pistols. It didn't matter, bags, boxes, whatever. Anybody was carrying information going into there, and it dragged down the airstrip with everything still flying, some people hanging on because here came the mortars, the rockets, the rocket-propelled grenades, the snipers, the mortars, everything on both sides was just right in the middle of one great big battle. And so everybody did the next best thing they could is run into the trenches everywhere, just helter-skelter, because everything was hitting in the middle of the runway. I dove into a trench, but there wasn't any friendly what do you call it, Marines there. There was 26 Marines that were there. So when I expected to see some Marines, but all there were rats. Yeah, big Norwegian rats, okay, and even baby rats. And they were, because of monsoon, it was all puddles. And I said, this was like World War I trench warfare. You know, what was this? And then, the battle was continuing, or the siege was continuing. And, it just seemed like endlessly. But I ran over the rats, on top of the rats, into this kind of ghoulish place with half civilian guys that were there. They were in half civilian clothes and half military clothes. I couldn't tell if they were civilians or military, whatever. And I looked around, and there were nothing but body bags. And I ran right through Charlie Med into Graves registration. And these guys were smoking a joint. Where they got it from, I don't know. I don't know if they were civilians. And some of the guys that just came in were shortly going to be in a body bag. And I almost had to pinch myself to say, well, I made it through the first 10 minutes. Where do we go from here? And these guys said, where do you go? A tanker, go out that way. And I said, no, go out this way. I don't know, it's in the green zone, the gray zone, the whatever. They said, they both go that way. So I went that way, and I flew out that way. And I had a duffel bag, and I was carrying it in front of me, and I ran smack dab into a rocket, coming in. But I was holding my bag like that, and the blast just came right through me. And when I looked on the other side, when I turned it over, I turned over on the other side because I hit the ground. All my underwear, white underwear, was just flying. All this shrapnel and everything. I had protected myself, and all the shrapnel just flew everywhere. But I did make it to our CP, which incidentally was right where all these rockets and direct fire artillery on the arc that it was coming in. It was coming in from about 5 miles away in Laos. It was called Koh Rock Mountain. They were firing directly right over Hill 881 and 861. I got assigned very quickly to somebody that Gunny Martin, who got seriously wounded, and at a place called the Rock Quarry. And I went, replaced him. Although he was a gunny, and I was like a PFC at the time, but somebody had moved up. Other tankers that were there were let's see, Bob Doherty, Gonzalez, Dale Sandifer, Larry Basco, Satch, Walkley, who was later KIA, and I'll think of a couple others. But first thing I noticed is we got assigned, there were only 2 tanks. There were 3 tanks in the CP and 2 tanks on the Rock Quarry. Now, every night, all the concertina wire and all the minefields were activated, and we were out like in the middle of Indian country. We were on the Rock Quarry next to Hill, I think it was like Hill 64, which was the lowest in elevation. There were different hills, 881 south, 881 north. It had 1056, 689, 531, all around us. And just like the French in Dien Bien Phu, the NVA overran each one of the hills, and that's what they were trying to do to all our hills, and duplicate the process under the same general with 4 divisions at his disposal. I noticed right away. We were in first thing I noticed, we were sleeping in a dirt cave, which I didn't like. First, it was overcrowded. Rats were running in and out. Bats were flying in and out, and in the middle were 90 millimeter rounds. And every time some nights, some days, we were hit with like over 150. We registered at 300 mortars around us, and of course all the dirt was dripping on us. And I looked at the arc on this, and it didn't take an idiot to figure out something's going to hit on top, and all this whole mountain of dirt is going to be falling on top, and I don't want to be in it or asleep. So I went to the other side, got a tank chisel, and they said, well, this was useless. They tried to traverse the turret and fire rounds into it, and it was like a wall of steel. And I said, no. I said, we have nothing but time on our hands until we're overrun. So I took a chisel. It was an 8-pound tank sledgehammer and a small tank chisel, and started chiseling. I dug a cave that was eventually about 8, 9, or 10 feet in, and I dug it in a zigzag descending trench, so any mortar blast and shrapnel couldn't get in. Only one thing was we covered it with ponchos on the outside and lit our diesel cans. And every morning we'd wake up, we'd be all black in the face, oily, and we'd be spitting, gummy balls of dirt the entire time. We didn't know we were disinfecting our legs for the rest of our lives, clog your nose up. But besides the war, there was the only thing was target practice, and that was on the rats. We were surrounded by Alpha 19 and Delta 19 infantry units, and everybody's pastime was shooting rats. I think the record, and it's even noted on the internet now, was 37 rats in one day. There were in and around Khe Sanh estimated to be over 1 million rats that were feeding on the enemy dead. Hopefully not on our lost patrol. In fact, I met one of the only POWs from Khe Sanh here in the last 2 years, Ron Ridgway, that lives just about 40 miles, 50 miles from me, and we had a good talk. But I did meet him. He was captured about 1,000 yards from us in the Battle of Long Vay at when Long Vay got overrun in sometime in March. And he was a POW for like 5 years. Eventually went to Hilton. He's got one hell of a story. But mail was intermittent, but one of the things that did get through was my brother, who ironically was in the seminary to be a priest, and I was a Marine. While he was saving souls, I was killing them off. But he mailed me a book. It was called A Gift of Prophecy by Gene Dixon. And Gene Dixon was famously prophesied the assassination of JFK, among numerous other things that did come true. And she also prophesied that, in the book, that one Shell Plaza in Houston, Texas was going to fall over because of the sandy loam soil, and it was being built, 50, 60, 70 stories, that it was going to fall over. And that finally that the Marines at Khe Sanh were going to get overrun like they did in 1954. So I was reading the book and I came across that. My brother's letter said, he said, do you know where Khe Sanh's at? How far are you from there? And and I looked up, I said, I'm smack dab in the middle of Khe Sanh, and we're going to get overrun. And all these 44,000 Indians, are going to do the same thing they did to the French, and that's, cut their testicles off and stick them in their mouth, which they mutilated close to half the force, 8,000 French legionnaires. At any rate, I was reading a book, and I told one of my new and closest friends, Dale Sandifer, that we were going to get overrun, so you can't keep that information really close to you. It spread in about 30 seconds down to the base commander about Colonel Lowndes. And it wasn't long before. I think we tugged on the book, and I got half of the book and put the two halves together and was called in front of the man. The man, of course, was a colonel, and went down to the main CP. Let's see, something SOG, S-O-G. Anyway, it was the main bunker. There was a lot, because of the battle going on, the siege going on, the communications. The bunker was just a lot of yelling and screaming by a lot of officers that I'd never seen before. A lot of majors, maybe even a couple of colonels, lieutenant colonels for sure, and a lot of sergeants and corporals running around with chits. And here I was with a book telling the base commander and these officers that we're all going to get overrun. So they borrowed my book, and they said they'd give it right back to me, which I, of course, never saw again. And the ironic part is we did not get completely overrun, and we didn't relinquish our flag. And speaking of flags, on the hills, 881 north and south, there was a captain, which was William or Bill Dabney, who was the son-in-law of Chesty Puller, and he had, of course, to live up to his father-in-law. So this gutsy captain every morning would raise the American flag on the highest mast that he could on 881, knowing between the missiles, rockets from Korak coming in across that flag as an aiming stick, because there was nothing in the base. They took all communications. The only time they put up a communication, they'd put up an antenna like that and put it back down after, or even on top of 1056. I think the mountain, they do the same thing, and they had, but that American flag, Old Glory, would stand there all day as an aiming stake. Gutsy, knowing that the enemy was 40, 50 yards away and another division behind it, and used it. And every night he had his bugler blow taps, and they'd surrender the colors. And every night they would lower the flag, which was gutsy. Bill Dabney was awarded like a Silver Star Navy Cross, and I'm sure he was wounded because everybody on 881 and 861 was either dead or wounded in being overrun several times. I don't even know how many. We fired from our tanks onto those two elevations. I spent my time on, 14 different operations, and besides Scotland and Pegasus, I can't even tell you the names, on different convoys, different ambushes, during different firefights, during sieges. I don't even know the names. In fact, I don't even know who I was attached to. We'd be given orders to go protect a bridge, and we were with maybe 3-3, and they'd leave in the morning, and somebody else would replace them, and they might be, another unit. They might be 2-9 or 3-9. And then 2 weeks later or a week later, we'd be running convoys, and there's somebody else, in charge. So don't really know who we were attached to for any period of time. Like I said, it was between, 22 or 23 major points on the DMZ, with recognition. So I don't know, the units. I know the approximate times of where I was at, but the rock pile was another one that I was missing. But I ended my tours by being bit by I thought it was a rat, but it was a mongoose. And real quick, I'll tell you about that. And I didn't find out the exact date until I wrote my mother, and then saw it in one of her letters. So I told her I got bit by a rat, but not to worry. I was in a hooch at Camp Carroll on the end, and I was on an ammo rack sleeping, and a couple friends of mine, Steve Devaney was there, Larry, Haley and Morale, Bubba Haley, and I forget Morales, Freddie Morale was there, and what everybody was doing at the time, because we hit some mines, went to the Charlie Med or whatever the med where they'd give you Dorvan pills, and these guys were misfits. And what they would do is take the two-part capsule apart and get the little pink ball out of it like that. And during the week they'd say, well, the pink ball's on. When they were given the ration of beer, they'd down the drink balls and drink the beer for a good high. So half these guys around us were just high after it was a Friday night, which could have been a Tuesday night. Didn't matter. And I was sleeping on an ammo tank, and I came from chow and I fell asleep, and my hand was dangling over, and I got a clamp on my 2 fingers, and I felt the slimy tongue underneath, and I was pulling it to me, half groggy in sleep, and I woke up and I look, and there's this big furry thing, and I was trying to pull my hand out, and what he did was, it was like a tug of war on my hand, so I didn't want to tug too bad, so I kept on going, "Grrr." Steve Devaney woke up, and Haley and Morale, or semi-conscious of being high or drunk or whatever. I think it was Morale that pulled the trigger. He pulled his 45 and cocked it, and he says, "Wait a minute, let me get this thing off you." And he pulls his trigger, and boom! I don't know if he shot high or low, or I think he shot more than 2 times. Anyway, it went, I think, over me and under me, which means it went through probably somebody else's hooch. And what happened to the animal, I don't know, out of fright. What do you call it? Powder burns over me, the side of my face. And what happened to the animal came out of there, but what we did here after that were a bunch of 45s being cocked, M16s being loaded, grenade pins being pulled and wait to see what was going on in the deal, what was all the firing about. But I did go to a medical facility, and I was taken to, I can't remember where I went to get the shots, and I went to get the shots on my stomach, and but I didn't finish them. About halfway through, I figured I was smarter than they were. Anyway, I thought I was invincible, but this was on my first tour, incidentally, and I was going home for a couple weeks. So what they did tell me is, if you're not going to take them and all this, if you feel like chasing cars or foaming at the mouth, go to your closest veterans hospital and take off, Marine.
Oh,
take off, ski cat. But anyway, Vietnam was a hard time, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. All the acquaintances and friends that I've made, and especially through the years since the internet is emerging, and we've now reconnoitered, hooked up with all of our buddies here at the reunion. So looking forward to the next reunion, as I've looked through this one and at the last 3. For future generations, for my grandchildren, I love all you guys. I hope you're watching it. I hope you're all on scholarships, getting through school. I hope I set an example for you. And to our granddaughter going in the Marine Corps now, God bless you. Go as an officer, not as enlisted, and Semper Fi.
Thank you, Chris.